Hi folks, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to take you through how to use Amplify Admin UI. I'm going to do it with a existing application which I've built in React. I'm going to show you how to use the Admin UI Sandbox to model your data. I'm going to then connect that sandbox into AWS account, add some more features, show you how to add stuff like access control so you can delegate access to developers who do not have an AWS account. And then I'll show you how to, at the end, set up a CI/CD pipeline to automatically build and deploy your application into AWS. For those of you who are not familiar with Amplify Admin UI, it's a reasonably new feature that was released at the end of last year at reInvent. I've written a few blogs about it. I'll put those links in the description. Again, if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and leave any comments for any future things that may be of interest that I can make for you. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so let's have a look at my app. So it's called the shopping list app. I can add an item here, to put in a name. Once I click the add function, it'll appear in the list down here. So that's really maintaining my list of shopping lists items. So the app itself, app.js, is the entry point. I've added some CRUD operations. So these CRUD operations, get user item, add item, delete item, are all part of to be implemented. And I'll do that as I build out this application. Other things of note are the entry point to the app itself. I've got a use effect hook here and calling a fetch data function. And all again that does is a little placeholder to implement me later on. Going to the UI, I've got some components here. I've got a item card and I've got a table card. So item card is where I call the add action, and table card is where I can list my items. It's got a delete action as well. So that's the app. Very straightforward, easy to do. So let's start building that up and start thinking about how we're going to data model it. The first thing we need to do is we need to open up the Amplify Admin UI Sandbox. And here is the URL you need to open. It's sandboxamplify.com, and the getting started page will bring you up with these two options. So you can either start an app backend or host a static website. So for this demo, I'm going to create an app backend. So if I click on the getting started link, then that should get started creating our app backend. The next page prompts us to see what sort of features we want to add to our app backend, whether it be data, whether it be authentication or file storage. Any of these features we can add. Again, for this demo, we're going to add the data feature because we're going to model our data and test our persistence in our application. Again, the admin UI gives us some options. We can have a pre-built schema for a to-do list or a blog schema. But for this example, again, we're going to go for blank, and I'll show you how to create stuff from scratch. So here's the data modeling screen for the Amplify Admin UI. I'm just going to kill this inspector panel, give me some more real estate. Once I kill that, then what next thing I'll do is I will add a model. So up here, I'm going to add a model, enum, or custom type. I'm going to add a model. I'm going to give my model a name. So as we're making shopping lists, my model type is going to be shopping list items. So shopping list items is the name of it. As well as adding the name, I get a default ID. I can add other fields inside this type. I'll need a name for each item. So I'll call a field inside the type item name and give it a type of string. I don't have to give it a type of string and give it more complex scalar types like date, date time, timestamp. But for this example, I'm going to use string. As well as that, I can make properties of these fields either is required or is array, depending on my requirements. So you can set that up as well. So that's my very basic type. As well as that type, I think what I'll do, I'll show you how to model a relationship inside this admin UI data modeler. So I'll add another type, and this type will be the container for shopping list items, and I'll call this one shopping list, I should say. So the first thing I do is give it a name, shopping list, and again, a very reasonably simple type. It has the default ID. It'll need a name as well, so I'll add a field. I will call this the name of the shopping list. So this name, and again, the type will be string, is required. I'll probably set it as required as well. And then I'll start adding that relationship. So adding a relationship, I can select where the relationship's from. So my relationship is, in this case, is from shopping list items. And I want one shopping list is to many shopping list items. I can do other relationships. I can model one-to-one and many-to-many. But for this example, I'm doing just the one-to-many. So that's my model, very simple. I've got my item name, and it shows you that relationship now at the shopping list ID from shopping list items. So I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do much. I just clicked a few buttons, and there's my data model all ready to be tested. Other things you can do in this screen is you can share the schema with other developers using this URL, and you can also share as a template. So if you want to base this model be the basis of future development, then you can share it as a template. This model will exist until we deploy into an AWS account, and I'll do that a little bit later. Once that happens, it gets locked down, so nobody else can get access to it apart from yourself. So let's go test our model. So the first thing we need to do is we need to follow the steps. So we choose what app type of app we're building: iOS, web, Android, and new cross-platform, which I assume is built on Flutter. And then we have React, Angular, and Vue. So go next. So I'm going React app. I've already created this React app, so I don't need to do this step, and that's why it's optional. But if I did, here's all the very handy steps that I need to use before to do it. Next, I install the Amplify CLI, and I want to pull down the data model. So this is 2 steps I need to run in Visual Studio Code back in my development environment. So let's copy those steps across, open up my my terminal, and paste the steps in. So the first step is pulling down all the configure, is actually installing the Amplify CLI. So installing Amplify CLI, can run Amplify status, Amplify commands to do stuff locally. And then once the CLI is installed, which it's just done, I then pull down the sandbox ID. And this will pull down my data model and what I've just configured down into my local development environment, and it'll also generate the types for the data model I've generated. And so I can start building and coding with them. So here are the types that have been generated. If you have a look, there's shopping list and shopping list items there as well. So all of those types are there and ready to be used inside my code. Again, looking back into app.js, let's start fleshing out. Before I do that, actually, sorry, I need to import my Amplify TypeScript library because I have to work with those types. So let's quickly do that. And then once I've done that, I need to copy an import statement that I put at the top of the file. So it allows me to use the Amplify libraries because I've just installed the CLI. Now I'm setting the project up to use Amplify and all this goodness. So once that's done, I go to the next step, step 5, which is where I start building out my CRUD operations for my application. So it's very handily all laid out for me here in the Amplify API, Amplify Web API, with all of the CRUD operations, some code that I can use and copy into my application just to get things going really, really quickly. And this is the real value add of the Amplify Admin UI, is getting stuff done really quickly and having a quick iteration cycle. So let's copy that code in and put it at the top. So it's some import statements for data store. Data store is the feature that we're going to use to persist our data. And here is the example code for creating an item. So I'll just quickly copy that in just to make sure I have done it. Add it in, just copy. I'm just going to paste it in and tidy it up. So I just stick that in there, get rid of my placeholder, and just make sure that everything's right. So I'm doing a data store.save on my shopping list items, which is correct. I don't need the other fields that is created, so that's the relationship field and another field that I created earlier. So I just need the item name. So I'm putting in the item name, which is passed into this function. Really, really easy to do. Done. So that's my save done. Other ones I'll do, so I'll do my delete action. So inside this function, I'll do that's do it in the wait. Obviously, it's in the sync function. So I'll do data store dot delete, which will delete the item that's been passed in, item ID. So that's the delete functionality done. And then finally, I need to get, so query. So I'm returning again await async function to data store dot query. And the query here, I can query individual shopping list items, but for this one query, I'm just going to bring back all of the shopping list items. So I just have to pass in the type itself, and it will return all of the items for that type, which is cool, really easy. So the next phase is to test what we've just built. Once we save that, recompile it, make sure everything is good. Then we just have to go into our application and test it out. So I type in some test items. I've got item one. I've got a little debug console at the bottom there, you might notice as well. So I go item one, test item one, I call it. I'll add that in, make sure it appears in my list. There it is, and then I'll add two. So I'll test item two, add that in as well in my list. And then I open up my, well, just check it's there first. So test item two, there it is. So I open up my debug console, go into the application tab, and then look at my indexed DB, which is where data store will store all my information. And inside that, you can see the two types that I've created. So I've been able to persist that locally inside IndexedDB. So I know that locally my data model is persisted with the types that I want. And it's really, really simple to do. Let's just, for clarity's sake, let's just delete one. So I've deleted one, refresh the database, and there you are. Only have one item left in the local data store, and that's test item two. So I've tested that it works, and everything is looking good. So it's time to move on to the next phase of my app development. The next stage of our journey is to create this application into the AWS account. Here I have an account that I've just opened up. So this is the AWS console. I'm giving my app backend a name. So I'm going to call it shopping list. And I can have a region, and you'll notice that app sync and data store are already there. This will take a few moments, so I'll pause the video here, but this is just deploying it into the backend. So once it's deployed, we can open up the admin UI again. So the admin UI here is different from Sandbox in that it's now locked down and secure inside the AWS account that you've connected it to. So opening up the Sandbox, there's a lot more features the admin UI. There's a lot more features this time than there were in the Sandbox version. You can add authentication. It's still deploying the model. You can manage the content, which I'll take you through in a minute. We can do a lot of other things. It's a little single pane of glass towards our account. And the next thing we need to do to connect our local development environment to this application. So we do that by going Amplify Pool. So I've copied that command, but I'm also showing you that you can still use the code that's all generated for you and link into the awesome documentation. So back in my VS Code, I paste in that Amplify Pool command. And what this does, this pulls all the configuration files back from my environment, and it allows my local development environment to connect to the admin UI. I have to choose the type of project, JavaScript, React. I'm choosing all defaults here because they'll all work. And then once that's been generated, the question, do you want to plan on modifying this backend? So this is important because what it's saying here is, do you want to use the Amplify CLI to modify this backend as well as the admin UI? So pressing yes allows you to give that functionality into your local development environment. And that is your application ready to go. So you can start developing out not only the front end, but deploy to the back end. So Amplify status, you'll see that now I have a category of API called shopping list, and I've got a GraphQL endpoint and an API key. So what that's done, it's connected in to my account and my project, and now has a backend. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to use the Manage App Content feature. So here we can create content for our application. So data that we'll store as part of our application, but we can also create it using an editor and add it as Markdown. So if you're writing blogs or you had specific content you wanted to add to your application, static content, you could do it here as well. what I'm doing, I'm just putting in some test data that I'm going to test out our data sync. So any data created here, I want to be showing in my application, and that will test to me that data sync is working across all applications. So all I've done, I haven't changed any code. It's still got the CRUD operations, and what's happening in the fetch data goes data store got query. So when I refresh the browser, it should query the data that I've just created, and there they are, cheese and crackers. So I can also create other items. So if I create cheese, crackers, and something that goes with cheese and crackers, milk, obviously, save that, you will see that although it persists in the console, it's not there until I refresh because the query will only run when I refresh. So I can fix that up by adding an observer onto the shopping list item type using data store again. So how do I do that? Well, I go into the documentation. So this is Amplify Docs. I find the library. So this is all the features and you can add. I go to data store and I go to real time. And in here, it shows me the code that I need to observe a particular type. And once I've observed it, I can do stuff with it. So I'm going to paste that code in. So data store dot observe, and this time instead of observing, I'm not observing a post. Obviously, I'm going to change that to shopping list items because that's the type that I want to observe. So I'll quick copy and paste in there the subscribe action. And what am I going to do when a change has been observed to this type? Well, I think I'll just want to reload the page. So that in effect will do a query for everything and it will refetch the data down and in effect sync it with the backend. So I just call fetch data and save everything, recompile, and then pull up my app again. And let's change the shopping list item. So if I, for example, rename cheese, rename it to, let's say, cheese slices and save that. It's automatically and right away persisted in the application, which is great. Again, I can remove items here. If I want to, I can remove them on both sides actually, and they will be synced. So that's testing data sync, and it works really well. And I've used the content management feature of the admin UI to do that, which is a pretty cool little feature. The next feature I'm going to add to my application is user management. So now I've tested my synchronization in my API. I need to secure it. So I'm going to add a authentication mechanism. I'm going to add it as a username. I'm going to say what if I require multi-factor auth or not, and I can configure what is required for sign up. So all of these I can configure via the admin UI, and once I'm happy with it all, I think I'll just create the defaults. I save and deploy. So what this does, this will create me a Cognito user pool, and it will link it up into my backend. So while that's deploying, I'm going to change the UI to actually use the with authenticator higher order component to make sure that sign up and sign out is inside my app. So I'm going to import auth from the Amplify libraries, and I'm going to use the with authenticator component to wrap my application so it challenges all the users for credentials. So I'm just simply here going npm install the libraries that I need to import to make auth work inside my application. And we'll just wait for those to come down quickly. While that's happening, just take a few more minutes on the flies. I'll just import my high order components that I need. I just know these ahead of time. So one's called with authenticator, which is the sign in, sign out, sign up, and then amplify sign out for sign out. I'll import it with the library. I'm just pulling down from npm at the now. And then the only code change I'm going to make wrap the export of this app in the with authenticator higher order component. So that is down at the bottom of this app. So scroll down the bottom here and wrap it in. So with authenticator, is the name of the component. Just there it is, and pass in the app itself. So save that, and that should change my UI to challenge all the users to provide credentials or to sign up before they can get in. So my backend deployment is done. So I'm now doing the Amplify pull to pull down that configuration locally from my admin UI backend. And you can see now there's a new category called auth. So that's all good. And now when I've refreshed my app, I get the usual sign in web page. I can reset my password. I can do all of that. And I can also create users using the admin UI. So here I am. I'll give myself a user, Derek. Contact option. I'll give myself my email address. So that's my email address and a temporary password. So user management, you can all control through the single pane of glass that is the admin UI, which is very, very handy indeed. You don't need to go into Cognito service at all. So that's my user created. Let's check that it works. Username Derek, password, secret password, and sign in. It should prompt me to change, and it does. So I'm changing my password, an even more secret password, and it doesn't conform to password policy. So make it a really long and complex password, and change that. And I can do recovery email settings, and there we are. I'm signed in now, and I have done that using the admin UI, pulling down the configuration, adding my higher order component with Authenticator to wrap the application itself, and I have challenged all my users. So finally, I'm going to show you how to manage users instead of a CI/CD pipeline. So here I'm managing the users who have access to my admin UI. I can give users full access or admin manage only access. Full access are for developers, so they can get full access to add features and categories into the backend application. And the manage only access control is for people who want to manage content or manage users inside admin UI itself. So they have very limited functionality. So that's how you set up users. And none of those users need AWS accounts. So next I'm going to set up the front end environment for my backend. So I'm going to simply connect it into my GitHub repo. This will enable my front end to be deployed and connect into my backend. So my front end will be deployed behind CloudFront, and it will be at the end of the CI/CD pipeline. So automating everything so that we can start pushing this application out for more developers to start building. While that's building, you'll see that it's slowly building. You can see that if we type into the front end environments tab, you'll see that the pipeline is started. So we're provisioning our environment, and then it will build and deploy. And we can also verify at the end as well. So if we just close it and then go back in, you see that the build pipeline is finished. And we also have a URL for application, and this is it. So we've built out a CI/CD pipeline for our entire application, and we've also managed to add a set of users to use the admin UI who don't have to have AWS accounts. So it's a very powerful little feature. Okay, well, that's it. It brings us to the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it, going through admin UI. You can see the whole benefit of admin UI is all about quick iteration, turnaround cycles, not needing the access to an AWS account to not only develop via the sandbox and do the data modeling that I showed you, but you can also delegate access to developers who don't have AWS accounts so they can build out the backend features as well, which is very cool. As I said at the start, there's links to blogs on this and other links to other Amplify stuff if you're interested. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.